Good morning, Detroit. This is the John Telford Detroit Show, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on WJZZ. I'm your co-host, Dr. Sunanda Corrado, with Dr. John Telford, coming to you live at 10 o'clock every Thursday on WJZZ Cool TV, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public School superintendent, a former world-class athlete, and conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, longtime civil rights crusader, and the author of 6 Detroit-oriented books: The Poet Emperor of Earth, What Old Men Know, Creative Insubordination, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run, and another forthcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. He also has a show on WCHB, AM 1340, Detroit's gospel station, Saturday mornings at 9:30, and 9:30 evenings at 6:30. That's it, 9:30 Saturday mornings and 6:30 Monday evenings. His books are available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or just by calling him, Dr. John Telford, at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. John Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy. He has received the Detroit City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year in 2001, and a Detroit track was named for him. His website is www.alifeontherun.com, and his email address is drjohntelford@aol.com. That's Dr. drjohntelford@aol.com. Now, without further ado, I present to you that crusading old native Detroiter, Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Dr. Sunanda Corrado, that PhD from Columbia University, who is an anthropologist by training.
Good morning.
Dr. Corrado has been teaching at Wayne County Community College for over 10 years.
That's right.
Doesn't look that old, does she? For over 10 years she's been teaching there. She's currently a researcher for the Detroit Equity Action Lab that's housed in the Wayne State University Law School, my triple alma mater, Wayne State University. She's a researcher there, and she is also the founder and CEO of Education for Design. So, today we have as our guest Michael Richard. Mike Richard. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning to both of you. 2 doctors in the house.
Yeah. Doctors, always good to have a doctor in the house. But neither of us,
We're kind of like mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're not that kind of doctor. You know?
Where there's one problem, there's 2 doctors.
True,
Yeah.
true, very true.
But Mike is running for the Detroit City Clerk's job.
Mm-hmm.
And also, my old student Beverly Kendall Walker is running for the Detroit City Clerk's job.
And
So I have got an enigma on my hands, because Mike and I have both been on the executive board of the 14th Congressional District, and I respect him highly. He's been on my radio show, but I love Beverly Kendall Walker. You know, she's my gal. You know, I taught her way back. I won't say when. It's so long ago.
And that's what I love about your show, that you'll bring on several different people running for the same office, so the audience gets an appropriate way to get to know each person for who they are. I think that's wonderful of your show.
It's our show, Sunanda.
Our
You're my
show.
co-host.
Oh, you're my mentor. I'm getting used to this being
You're
ours.
you're my mentor too. I mean, you're half my age, but you're still my mentor. And you know, before I forget, please contribute to the Dexter Elmhurst Center.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Helen Moore, the great Helen Moore, is trying to keep that center open, you know, and she did it all throughout the corona, and we're still trying to keep it open. So send money to 11825 Dexter Avenue, the Dexter Elmhurst Center, 11825 Dexter Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, 48206. And when you do send money, if you would, send it in memory of my wife, Adrienne Telford. The wonderful Adrienne Telford, my wife, who was a principal in the Detroit Public Schools and who was at my side every step of the way for many a year. The Dexter Elmhurst Center, 11825, at 11825 Dexter Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, 48206. Okay, another thing I have to mention. We need to take back Belle Isle. We got to take back Belle Isle. I mean, I look out my window every day and I see Belle Isle because I live in the River House, and I love that island, as Detroiters all do. And you've got Roger Penske there, you know, with his Grand Prix, which isn't doing people in the hood any good at all. We need to take back Belle Isle.
We should put the concert of colors, extend it down Woodward into Belle Isle.
Amen.
Oh,
amen. Amen.
man,
Amen.
beautiful spot for music.
I loved it.
Not only is the race causing long-term devastation to Belle Isle and its inhabitants, much of the island is not accessible to the public for about 2 months. You know, both before and after, you know, the take-up and the takedown. And you know, I like to script everything I do, and I'm reading with one eye because my 85-year-old eyes aren't that good. But we've got to, you know, after they do the race, they got to set up, then they got to take it down, they got to clean up, and this is also racism, folks, and that's not in the script because it's not doing us in the neighborhoods any good.
Dr. Telford, who was that architect who designed both Belle Isle and Central Park? It was the same man.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And in fact, Belle Isle, he said, was his greatest piece.
Yeah, well, he designed Belle Isle, you know, a century ago, and I'm not sure who it was, but we need to tell the Department of Natural Resources and Roger Penske that it's time to find a new location. All right. Can you see the people in Birmingham or West Bloomfield or something? They'd never let them be racing in there, but they do everything to us because we don't ever complain and we don't have a lot of political clout. But this is our island, so don't be coming on our island. You know, there was one other thing I wanted to do, if it's okay, before.
Perfect.
Okay. This is another thing that has just been bugging me. In 1962. My buddy, Olympic hurdler Hayes Jones from Pontiac, NCAA mile champ Dyrol Burleson of the University of Oregon, and I formed a group called ITA, International Track Athletes of America, in an attempt to get the then controlling NAAU, the National Amateur Athletic Association, and the track meet promoters, both here and abroad, to set aside a substantial cut of the gate receipts in escrow for us until we retired from racing. Our attempt was unsuccessful, and we were also born too soon. You know, big track stars get paid big money, you know, for racing now. And a current wrinkle to this money control angle of the powers that be was the French Open promoters, you know, the tennis match promoters. Their recent attempt to force tennis star Naomi Osaka to give interviews to the press in order to draw sellout crowds at the gate. It's always about the money. They fined her $15,000 when she refused. This follows a long line of major institutions' intent to exert control over athletes, particularly black athletes. Competing in sport and talking to the press are two entirely different things. You know, there's a long and painful history of powerful sporting institutions controlling black athletes, going back to well before Osaka was even born. During their medal ceremony at the 1968 Olympics. You remember the 1968 Olympics when Tommy Smith and John Carlos, you know, gave the Black Power salute? You remember that? You know what they did? The International Olympic Committee of the United States sent them home. They sent him home. Wouldn't let him run on the relays. They sent him home. In 1996, you know, Mahmoud Abdul Raoul was suspended by the NBA for refusing to stand during the national anthem, and he was traded. He was traded the next summer. And you remember what they did to Muhammad Ali. You know, Muhammad Ali got stripped of his title and stripped of his boxing license for refusing to step forward and get inducted in the United States Army because he didn't have any quarrel with the Viet Cong, which we should not have had either.
Threw his medal away.
Well, that was earlier. He threw his medal away. That was because he was suffering racism in Kentucky when he was still Cassius Clay. But you know, because these black athletes, you know, they're not punished for anything they did on the track or the court or the field, but because they dared to demonstrate against oppression. Colin Kaepernick, remember what he did? You know, he took a knee. You know, he hasn't represented any NFL team since as a quarterback. And the bottom line is it always comes back to the money. It always comes back to the money. And while I'm on the topic, elite collegiate athletes, it's time now for the NCAA to draw up contracts with elite collegiate athletes and pay them. You know, when I went undefeated at 200 and 400 meters in Europe, representing the United States on the national team in the late 1950s, you know what? Wayne State University was in headlines all over the world. That's a whole lot of free publicity. That's a whole lot of free publicity.
You got a call.
Oh, we have a caller? Caller, you're on the air on the John Telford Show with Sunanda Corrado, Michael Richard, and me, John Telford. What's your comment or question? Hello, caller? I can't hear the caller.
Hi, this is Gabrielle. Thank you for contacting Voice Command in regards to getting your business listed on Amazon.
Oh, well.
Talk about callers nowadays.
Not doing
AI
that,
is too much for
I
me.
get those calls all the time.
And you know what? You know, I also wanted to show this
yes.
picture. I want to show this picture. I wrote a poem about this picture because this was a race. This was a race in which I ran against Giovanni Scavo. He's in the middle here. That's Giovanni Scavo. He was a European 400-meter champion. The other guy is Lang Stanley, who was the national half-mile champion from San Jose State, and me. You know, it looks like I lost that race because I'm gasping for air, and these two guys look all calm. But it was right after the race, and I had won that race. And what I'm going to do on another show, because I don't have time to do the poem, I don't think today, because I want to talk to Mike here and interview him. But Giovanni Scavo was killed in a crash only weeks after that race. And I didn't find out till I was back in the United States, and I got a letter from him after he was killed. It was almost like getting a letter from a ghost. That was the great Giovanni Scavo, the European champion, the Italian champion, and he was only 19 years old. And they called him the Infante Terrible of European racing. I mean, he had his whole career in front of him. He was just starting to win races. That was a real tragedy. I'll talk about that more. But I've got Mike Richard today, and he is running for city clerk. He is running for city clerk in Detroit. And Mike, I would like to ask you some questions, if I could.
Well, good morning to the both of you. Yes, you may.
Okay, well, here are the questions that I would like to ask you. Why in the world do you want to run for Detroit City Clerk?
And thank you for that.
You know,
Well, thank you for that
running.
question. I get that
what,
question a
and
lot.
what makes you qualified to run for
Well,
Detroit?
I ran in 2009, and unfortunately, that was the year that they threw out 56,000 ballots that
That's
couldn't be
right.
counted. What made me qualified to run is because I worked for the city of Detroit for 23 years, but I worked in the Department of Elections as a senior training specialist for 6.5 years. And it was my job to hire the poll workers, to train them, to make sure that they knew what they should do and how they should act on election day. So I have the experience for it. I also have the education for it. I'm a graduate of Northeastern High School in Detroit, a graduate of the greatest HBCU in the United States, Central State University.
Who was your principal at Northeastern?
Principal was Sneed.
Hey, David was at Northeastern?
He was at Central, then he came to Northeastern.
No kidding. Then he went to Cass.
Correct.
That's my man.
Then after Central State, I went to University of Detroit, where I got a master's in public administration. So what makes me interested in the position is I was trained for it by the late Jackie Curry, if you remember her.
Yes, God bless her.
She put me in every situation possible in the Department of Elections to get ready for probably running. So I have the background, I have the education, I have the expertise. I am a community activist. I've spent the last 4 years working for Wayne County Commissioner Monique Baker McCormick. I also worked for a friend of yours, Congressman John Conyers, for several years as his administrative assistant.
Yeah.
So I have the background, the training, and the expertise. 4 years ago, I was going to run, but the congressman and a couple of ministers wanted to back a higher profile candidate. So they prepared me after that election for this election. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he
That was a
laid
real
a
loss.
lot of the groundwork for this election.
That man was a hero, John Connors.
So I'm qualified, I'm ready. I'm basing my stand on what he always said: jobs, justice, and peace. Mine is education, community, and experience. And my motto is experience counts, and so should your vote.
I like the education part of it,
Being educated, you would.
Long educated.
I'm going to ask you a spicy question because we just went through the federal elections. And so from the national point of view, we're trying to say all of our election system is okay. There's no doubt to me that Biden won. But what do you think is really going on in Wayne County? And do you think our election system is that accurate? Because I have friends who've run whose names still can't be spelled correctly on the ballot.
Well, it's surprising that you mentioned that because our former president, when he had a news conference and said, well, Michigan and Detroit has always been corrupt. And that's wrong, totally wrong. We might be inept, but we are not, in the city of Detroit, Department of Elections, corrupt at all. So he was wrong at that. Inept, meaning
he was
that
lying. He was just flat out lying.
Correct.
That man doesn't know how to tell the truth. He wouldn't recognize truth if it bit him in the butt.
we need more education and more training in that department. What's been going on in Wayne County is Wayne County reviews all of the tabulations from Detroit. The Detroit tabulations are off a great deal, by 70%. The Detroit election was
that again?
by 70%. They were off. The August election of last year was so bad that the state came in at the urging of the mayor, the clergy, business leaders, and other elected officials. The state came in to run the November election. And let me just say that we say the word run, they advised us heavily, a great deal, because the clerk basically couldn't do her job. And so now the state has taken over the November election. The count was off. The education of the poll workers wasn't adequate.
Excuse me, Mike, just for a second. I don't know if we saw the light, but we're supposed to do a commercial.
Oh, let me do the plug. You are watching John Telford Detroit. Good morning, Detroit, on WJZZ, the coolest TV jazz station in the country. Please Facebook us, YouTube us, Twitter us, and please like, follow, comment, or share your ideas and ours with the rest of the world. If you're interested in sponsoring or advertising for programming on this Black-run TV station, one of the few platforms we have left, please be sure to email WJZZCoolTVOfficial@gmail.com. And don't forget, we got our Sunday Backyard Boogie this Sunday from 3 to 9. Please come out and join the crew. Thank you. And I just wanted to get back to what Mr. Richard was commenting on in terms of the city, not Wayne County, but the city and the state coming in and taking over these November elections, or should I say heavily advising us on it.
Yes.
What was the impact?
The impact was the November election was, let's just say, 80% better.
Oh.
Had they spent more time, it probably would have been 100% better. but we need to do some adequate training. We need to do some adequate education. People need to know what's on the ballot. Under Jackie Curry, we used to always joke, Jackie Curry's administration, we might have been slow, but we were accurate. We were right on point. This election, you don't know who wins until the next day or the day after. The joke under this administration is if you're leading at 11 o'clock on election night by 5,000 votes, don't go to bed and go to sleep. You wake up, you lost by 10,000 votes.
Wow.
That shouldn't happen. The counts have been off. We need to have a more accurate count to know who our elected officials are.
Do we need a separate way of doing things now that we're going to have more mail-in ballots?
No, all we just need is a detailed way. I am the only candidate that is certified by the state of Michigan to be an election trainer. Under my administration, I'm going to send all of my trainers to the state of Michigan to get certified. And then I'm going to bring them back to Detroit, and then I'm going to train them again on customer service, on the accuracy of the vote, on understanding the polls, understanding their jobs.
Mike, what are some of the changes that you would make in the office of the Detroit City Clerk?
Well, number one, I would propose education. I want to go into high schools. You know, we don't have civics anymore.
Yes.
And by the way, I've taught
I was
for
gonna put
13
it back.
years at
I was going to put it back
WC3.
when I was superintendent. I was going to put it back. You know,
I was with Otto Feinstein at Wayne State when he started the Civic Literacy Urban Agenda
Yes.
project with the high schools. We were in over 60 high schools trying to get civic agendas built by the kids themselves.
Under Jackie Curry, I was at every high school.
They've cut it out all across the country, and that and we're reaping the whirlwind now because we've got some very uneducated citizens who don't understand democracy and the way
Correct.
it functions.
But see, that's our fault
Yeah.
for not giving them the information. Under my administration, when a student graduates from high school, they're going to get a diploma in one hand and a voter registration card in another hand.
Amen.
We're going to educate our people, the city of Detroit people, on what's on the ballot. We're going to try to make the ballot more readable, easy to read. So if you're voting for A, well, that means that you're voting for B. No, we want to let people know exactly who they're voting for. We also want to let people know the exact day of the election. You're not going to see a 12-foot picture of me and at the bottom, vote on this day, and the date is wrong. What I want to do is make sure that our people are educated. So I want to go into the community. There are about 103 community groups in the city of Detroit. I want my people to attend them, and I will attend them, and let them know what's on the ballot. I'm going to bring the election materials there. I'm going to bring the poll book there. I'm going to explain what goes on election day. So I am going to make sure that the people of Detroit understand. I'm also going to go out to the community to get them to be poll workers so that now they're invested in the community and now they're invested in the city of Detroit. So that's what I would like to do, among other things.
What else are you basing your campaign on?
Commitment to the community, commitment to the people. We need to be transparent. People need to be able to trust the system. If I say Dr. John Telford won the election, he can be assured that he won. If I told him that he lost the election, I'm going to tell him, well, you lost the election, it was accurate, and this is the reason why. I have the experience for 6.5 years working in the Department of Election. I have the education. I want to educate our people. I have the commitment. I am committed to the city of Detroit, to the people of the city of Detroit, and I want to assure them that the elections are truthful, honest, and accurate.
I keep losing elections. I ran for the school board. I ran for mayor. Ran against Duggan.
Never stop running.
And
That's
I'll probably
correct.
run for the school board again next year if I'm still around. I'm 85 years old, but
Oh, heck yeah.
I'm gonna
What do you think about,
take another crack at it.
please? But what do either of you think about the distrust then? That don't you think distrust goes along with the lack of education?
I think the distrust is people will think that their vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that we don't trust
A lot of people feel that
politicians,
way in the
as they
city.
say. And I differ from you. If the system is correct and truthful and honest, the people will believe in it. I want to be able to say, under my administration, people say there's nothing assured in life but death and taxes. I want to say death, taxes, and your vote count will be accurate. But people have to understand that once they vote, it's tabulated and it's tabulated correctly. So you might not like the fact that your candidate won or lost, but at least it's accurate and honest and true.
How would you deal with the cultural kind of lashback of what's going on with the Charter Commission not being on the ballot this time?
Oh, that teased me off. That's not over yet. We can still get that on the ballot if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It's on the ballot now.
It is?
But they're still trying to, it's still in court, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
I want to tell people, right now, supposedly the Detroit government is not giving the money to the charter to educate the people. I think we need to give money to the Charter Commission to educate the people so people will know what is on the charter. You can vote yes or no for it. As your elected official, once I'm elected to the city clerk's position, my goal will be to uphold the charter. I'm not a legislator, so I can't tell you what to do on it. I'm not a judge, so I can't interpret it. But when I take the oath of office, I will take the oath of office that I will assure you that I will follow whatever the tenets of the Charter Commission states, whatever the charter says, if it's on the ballot and passed.
Well, someone explained to our diasporan Detroiters and new Detroiters coming in why the Charter Commission is so important for this city.
The charter writes the Bible of the city, the government. We have to follow what the charter says. So it's very important that the Charter Commission went into the community and got input from the community. What's wrong with the charter? What's wrong with the city of Detroit? What's wrong with the city of Detroit? How do you want it changed or not changed? So the Charter Commission did a 3-year study. They went into the community to try to find out what the Detroiters wanted. And what they did was they presented a charter, what the people of Detroit wanted. So now what it is up to the people to decide if they want it, yes or no.
So the charter is our constitution.
Our constitution, just like you have the Constitution of the United States, the Wayne County Charter, the City of Detroit Charter, and the State of Michigan Constitution.
So the charter is our constitution.
Correct.
Of course, Trump says we're corrupt. Trump has contempt for our constitution. I mean, we are so fortunate that we got that criminal out of there. And I'll be talking a little bit about him if there's time in the show, but I always like to take my crack at him. And since this show is supposedly about my poetry, before I forget, I just want to take a little shot at Trump, if I could.
Okay.
Okay. Because I wrote a poem called Uncivil Warfare, and I shared that poem with you last week too, listeners and watchers, and I've shared it on WCHB AM 1340 as well, Detroit's gospel station, which is where I have my radio show on 1340 every Saturday morning at 9:30 and Monday evening at 6:30. But this particular poem, guess when I wrote it? I wrote it on January the 6th, 2021, a day that will live in infamy. And the poem goes like this. On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. Now, I have never been a proponent of capital punishment because too many times they've executed the wrong innocent person. And perhaps you listeners and watchers aren't proponents of capital punishment either. And if you're not, I understand. So, if we're not going to put this sucker in the gas chamber, let us at least send his lying, monstrous behind to jail for the rest of his natural life. Okay, that's my poem for the day.
Okay.
No, it's not my poem for the day. I'm gonna do some other poems too. But right now, we're talking to Mike Richard. Mike, what other plans do you have for the city clerkship if the city and you are fortunate enough to attain that office?
Well, the other part of the clerk's duties is basically the clerk's office is the keeper of Detroit records. I want to make sure it's automated. I want to bring us into the 21st century. I want to work on our customer service initiative.
Yeah,
I
that's a
want to
big
work
deal.
on being pleasing. Jackie Curry used to say, "You will not be rude to our voters, to our citizens." And they are not rude, they're accurate. But I want to make sure that our computer systems are up to date. I want to make sure that our communication from the city to the people of the city of Detroit are up to date. I want to make sure that the city clerk's office is automated. I want to make sure,
Can you
again,
do
it's
any-
automated.
Can you do any type of forensic algorithms to make sure that a lot of these racist agendas don't get transferred into kind of digitized information?
We are going to be on top of that. I'm going to hire the top-notch people in computers to make sure that the information is accurate, not biased. Whether you're left wing or right wing, we're going to give you the truth. So I want to do that. I want to make sure that our office is open to the public. The downtown elections department, you have to pay to park. I would love to have free parking.
Yeah, that's how
Downtown,
Got to interrupt you again. Commercial.
Good morning, Detroit. You are watching the John Telford Detroit Show on Thursdays at 10 o'clock. Live streaming on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Watch us via at Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Like us, follow us, comment, share, and subscribe to our programming over here. If you're interested in supporting these programs, please, if you're interested in sponsorships or advertising, contact us at WJZZ Cool TV Official at gmail.com. Now, Mr. Richard, I can't believe you've been groomed by Jackie Curry, who I completely admire.
Are you done with the commercial?
Oh yeah, we're done
Okay.
with the commercial.
Okay, well, I want to get back in just for a minute before we go back to Mike, because
Yeah.
I have found that poem about Giovanni Scavo.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I found it in the Lifelong Poetic Prancings
Poetic Prancings.
of
Your
Mad
book.
John, my poetry book. I've got another one coming out called Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, and that'll be coming out pretty soon. I'll have some poems in there too.
It's
but-
at Barnes and Noble and Amazon.com.
This particular book was published by Detroit Ink Publishing.
Yay,
That's the
our city.
outfit that Keith Owens does. Who's now working for the county executive. And because since I did happen to bring this picture, I just wanted to talk about that race for just a little bit before we get back to Mike. We've still got a good half an hour. But the poem is called Ode to Giovanni Scavo. And a good listening piece for this poem is Gardmark's In Italian Overture, Opus 49. I like to suggest classical music, with some of my poetry. And this is the poem. In 1957, in summertime Bologna, upon Riunione Internazionale, that was a big track meeting, the Reunion International. Upon Riunione Internazionale, I defeated Scavo in the 400 metri. I was 21. He'd just turned 19. Atletica leggera e infante il terrible.
Italian.
Before the race, the sold-out crowd had chanted Scavo really loud. Afterward, we traded pins and promised that we'd write. From Italia by slow freighter came this letter 2 months later. John and Gio run 1-2 in Rome Olympics 1960. Just before I had read he'd driven fast and far in his Ferrari toward the reaches of the marches from the famed eternal city, crashing high up on a mountain near the heights of the Abruzzi, and there died in his Ferrari. Italia mourned her campione, the champion runner, Giovanni. And when I got that letter from him,
Yeah.
it was like getting a letter from a ghost, because it came after I had read in the headlines, only weeks after this race was run, that he always loved to drive fast in that car, and he just crashed high up on that mountain, And you know, that race was an intimidating race, because when Lang Stanley, the American half-mile champion, and I got down in the blocks, and Scavo was in the lane outside of me, the whole crowd, there are 80,000 people in that stadium screaming, Scavo, Scavo, Scavo. Talk about being intimidated. But you know, when I won that race, there was a deathly silence. And then all of a sudden, this little segment of stands over here started shouting Telford, because my name had been misspelled in the meat program. They put an extra E in my name, Telford. And pretty soon, this whole stadium was screaming Telford, and the flags went up. And you know, I have never in my whole life experienced anything like that before or since. Even in other races I won in Europe, or in national races in the United States, that was an experience. So I wanted to take a moment to I guess memorialize Giovanni, because you know, we had communicated, we had shared each other's national pins, and we're going to write to each other, and I never got the chance to write to him, but he did write to me. And then within weeks we had lost him.
That's strange.
I don't know what that was.
Maybe he's here.
Yeah, maybe Gio was talking to us. Gio, are you out there?
Yeah.
He just remarked again.
Wow.
We have Mike Richard. Gio, you gotta be quiet now, because we've got Mike Richard here. Oh, Sunanda fixed your mic, Leo. Okay. We have Mike Richard. He is running for city clerk. The city clerk we have, I don't think has always been that dependable or competent. I guess we should not be knocking someone who's in office like I knock Trump all the time when
That's
he was
what
in
we do
office.
during election time.
That's true.
But again, Mike, you're going to be doing what you can to do better than Jackie Curry did. Is it?
And this person that's in there now.
No, the person now.
Winfrey. We can say her name. I know her husband, by the way. I don't know if she's still married to him, but he always finds a way to
So
get it.
what I find amazing is, like, you've been groomed personally by Curry. You know the ins and outs of the office and all of its struggles with Lansing and everything else, and the city as well. You've been groomed by John Conyers, and we know Detroit's a one-party town. So can you tell me how, like, this politics of employment, how this, I say, genealogy of Democrats that you represent is different than everybody else who's a Democrat running for this office?
Well, the good thing about being the clerk is we're not partisan.
Yes.
We can't sway on the Democratic way or the Republican way. And I always tell people, you want your city clerk to be neutral. You want to say, you know what, I want the best candidate to win. But basically, you're not Democrat or Republican. And people will always ask me, well, are you a Democrat or you Republican? I say, well, I'm running for city clerk. But I am a member of the 14th Congressional District, and I work for 4 Democratic elected officials, so I'll say that. But I love Detroit. My goal was to give back. I want to say to the ladies out there, you always explain to your children, well, you know what, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be the president, you could be a writer, you could be a doctor. Well, I've always wanted to be a politician or a public servant.
Yeah.
But my education, my mother used to always say that I was the most educated liberal arts person she ever met in her life. I mean, I attended Wayne State, UND, Central State, Ohio State, Lawrence Tech.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got all of this in public policy, all this information in education, public policy, political science, public administration, government. So I've studied it. I know it. I understand it. So I think that I'm qualified because I've got the education for it. I've got the experience for it. But I also have the community background from Wayne County Commissioner Monique Baker McCormick, for John Conyers. People always thought that he was training me to take his job. No, we talked about Detroit politics all of the time, whenever we were together. What's going right with it, what's going wrong with it. And a lot of people don't remember, but John Conyers wanted the United States government to come in twice to oversee the Detroit elections.
That's
it
right.
was so bad then. The state
right.
finally came in. Detroit, we need help. We need a qualified person who can run the department, that can give back to Detroit the honesty that we need in our elected officials. We've got the honesty in our elected officials, but if you want to vote for, let's just say, either Adams, Barrow, or Duggan, you believe in these three people, but you're going to vote for them. Shouldn't that vote count?
Yeah.
So my experience is experience counts, and so should your vote. So no matter who wins, it should be accurate so that you can go to sleep and say, well, you know what? I voted for Adams. I voted for Duggan. Or I voted for Barrow. But my candidate won because there's honesty in the elections department.
Yeah, well, Duggan's probably going to win. He's got all the money.
Never know in the city who's going to win.
This is true.
You know, you were mentioning Conyers. I gotta put that book in front of you guys again, because John Conyers wrote for this book right here, and I am qualified to write a book called What Old Men Know. Even though I wrote this book 10 years ago when I was 75 years old, I was an old man then. And John Conyers, and the book, of course, the subtitle is A Definitive Dictionary, an Almanac of Advice. But what John Conyers wrote in the blurb for this book was, this satirical and memorably quotable new dictionary will delight all Democrats, with a small d and a capital D. It will also infuriate some Republicans. But once they pick it up, neither Democrat nor Republican will put it down. That was United States Congressman John Conyers, longtime great Michigan Democrat, and a man that I was proud to call my friend. And losing him, Detroit losing him, Michigan losing him, America losing him, was a tragedy. We need more John Conyers in Congress today, instead of the 147 Republicans who voted to, well, don't let me start on Trump.
Well, who do you think supported the Voting Rights Act? John Conyers.
Yeah, absolutely. John Conyers supported everything that we stand for in life.
Yes.
I don't think John Conyers ever made a wrong political move, because he was a righteous man. And did he have some flaws? Did he get in some difficulty here and there? Yes, he did. I mean, who among us should cast the first stone?
Indeed.
You know, I made a few problems in my 85 years on this planet.
Well, my entire campaign, we based it prior to his death. He was going to get an office. Half of his office was going to be for him to write his story, his memoirs.
Yes.
The other half we were going to use for my campaign office.
Wow.
So he left me the groundwork for my campaign, going into communities, talking to the ministers. I've got a couple of Congress people, U.S. Congress people, behind me because of his support. So he has left me a lot. I either wear his pen, or his wife, Mrs. Monica Conyers, gave me his cologne after his death. I was also a pallbearer at his funeral, but right now I'm wearing his cologne, my good luck cologne. Indeed. So I've learned a lot from him. In fact, on the back of my brochures that's being mailed out now, I have a picture of myself and him, and myself and Jackie Curry, the two people that framed my political life.
Wow.
Wow.
What I like about your approach to voting and education, it's so different than what's going on with young people. It's always get out the vote, the GOTV thing again and again. And what you're proposing is to get them onto the foundational basis of a democracy, learning to govern ourselves even as they're graduating, not just to vote, but to be a poll worker, to be able to start kind of mitigating the circumstances for why we have this attack on our election system. I haven't really heard anybody else talk about not only bringing civics back to the schools, but bringing kids into our civil government at such an early stage. I know when I went to school in the suburbs, I mean, kids were running for city council since 18, 19, 20.
Yes.
And I think there's a young lady right now, maybe 21, 22, running for the mayor of Detroit. And I really admire all that, and I really admire and I really feel like the feeling of it not being trustworthy could change with the kind of connection you're talking about with young people.
We need to have the old guard, such as almost myself, teach the younger people how to take over the government after we're gone. We need to give them the education and experience that we have and pass it on. And that's what John Conyers did to me. That is what I've looked forward to working with some of the city council people, the mayor, whoever the mayor is going to be during the next election. But getting back to Detroit politics.
When you're talking mayor too, don't forget Deetta Wilcoxon. She is also running, and she's a very good mayor.
I heard she is on the ballot.
Yeah, she's running on the independent ticket.
You know,
right?
Incidentally, the lady who was on the council, who was married to Dave Sneed, Sharon McPhail.
Sharon McPhail.
Yeah.
She's been talking about conducting a write-in. She's been talking about it. I don't know if she's going to do it.
I think she said a lot of people supported doing a write-in for her, so she said, go ahead.
Well, you know, she did very well in the write-in once before. I think she ran for county exec as a write-in candidate, and did rather well.
Well,
one thing that she said at the I'm sorry, but one thing she said at the UCAC meeting that you helped organize that meeting that day was that, and this really got me. So I'm wondering what your reaction would be. That
I invited you to that meeting, UCAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you meet that meeting?
Yes, I was there.
You were there? Okay.
Yeah. Remember?
That's right, you was there.
Remember
That
when
was
she
my
said
memory.
we might be rolling towards a second bankruptcy?
Correct.
And if that's the case, how is the city clerk's office like the mitigating point? How is this so important in terms of what the warning she gave us?
Well, when I worked on the staff for Barbara Rose Collins, I reviewed the city clerk's budget. We have to make sure that it's accurately spent, not on big billboards or have your picture on the back of all the buses in the city of Detroit. We've got to be able to make sure that the money goes into the community to advise people about the elections coming up. Make sure the correct date is on the billboards. I mean, the correct date of the election. Who wants to see a 12-foot picture of the person and 5 inches on remember to vote?
We got a commercial. They have the commercial. I want to read some of this.
And we're talking with Mr. Richard, candidate for city clerk. I'm glad you joined us. Good morning, Detroit.
Michael Richard.
Michael Richard. And you are watching John Telford Detroit, live streaming on WJZZ Cool Jazz TV, the coolest station in the world. Please watch us via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Please also like us, follow us, comment, share, and subscribe to our programming. To inquire about sponsorships or advertising, please contact us at WJZZCoolTVOfficial@gmail.com. And please don't forget our invitation, Sunday from 3 to 6. 3 to 9, We're having the backyard barbecue on Ralston, just around the corner of 7 Mile and Woodward. Please come out and meet the crew.
Thank you, Sunanda. Michael Richard is running for city clerk. Michael Richard has worked for most of his life in community relations. He has a genuine commitment to public service and ethics in the conduct of the people's business. And I have been on the executive board of the 14th Congressional District with Michael Richard. I know him well. He's been on my show. He would make a tremendous city clerk. I have to say that, even though I am in support of my student, Beverly Kendall Walker, who would also make an excellent city clerk. These are both two very good people, two good Detroiters.
Gotta really read through the literature this election, guys.
Yes.
Mike Richard ensures the return of honest, fair, and impartial elections. He promotes the security and safety of all ballots. He focuses on voter education through high schools, community groups, and civic organizations, with the accent on high schools. We've got to educate these kids. You know, I'm the poet in residence now for the Detroit Public Schools
That's
Community District. You know, I go around to the high schools sharing my poetry, but I have my own poetry class that I co-teach with Mr. Benjamin Piper at Southeastern High School, where I used to be the track coach 60-some years ago. You know, I'm back, you know, what goes around comes around. But what I have found too often is that because of this 2-decade takeover that was subjected to us, that was forced on us, unwillingly. We didn't need that takeover. We had a $125 million surplus when they took us over, and our test scores were at the state midpoint and rising, but they took us over. And now here we are, 20 years later, and I have seniors in my senior class at Southeastern High School, which I've been teaching for the past almost 4 years now, who can't read. And I find this to be very, very troubling as an educator, as a parent, and as a community member. But Mike Richard is going to turn that around. He's actually going to do things in the schools. He's a graduate of Detroit Northeastern High School, which no longer is there. They've leveled the whole school. I did a North Central evaluation of that school. It still was there. That's when I was, what was I doing? I think I was deputy superintendent in Rochester. But make sure your voice, your vote is heard and counted correctly. Return the clerk's office to fiscal responsibility by electing somebody like Mike Richard or Beverly Kendall Walker, and Mike is here with us today. And Mike, do you have any further comments about your candidacy?
Well, thank you. That was from the Detroit Free Press. That's what the Detroit Free Press said to me, that I spent my entire adult life in the service of the community of the city of Detroit. I have the experience. I have the know-how. I have the will. I want to give back. I didn't just wake up yesterday to decide I want to be city clerk.
Right.
I don't need the job. I don't need to get elected just to have a job.
In fact, what other offices have you ever run for?
I've ran for city clerk 2009. I ran for county commission once during the 80s. And I'm just...
Never for mayor.
Right. Never for mayor. No.
You know, we ought to run this guy for mayor.
No, that's too much. Yeah. That's too much for me. I want to stay in my lane,
well,
stay what I'm good at.
What I see is a very focused agenda through your career.
You've got the voice for mayor.
Well, thank you.
You've got the presence for mayor.
That's the truth.
And you know, look at you, suit and tie. Look at me. You know, I ran for mayor, and I did not. I was not wearing. Well, I did wear a suit and tie.
Well, we do have a Michael who's mayor, so can't go wrong with that.
Well, I would like a city clerk who feels that's responsible for the city as the mayor.
Don't get me wrong, Mike Duggan is my friend. There are a lot of guys who are my friend that I don't necessarily always support. I did support him for a while. You know, Benny Napoleon was my friend too. The late, great Benny Napoleon. And Chief Craig is my friend. I mean, he's been on my WCHB show, but can you imagine he's running for governor as a Republican? What?
I think that's pretty fancy. I think it's, you see, I don't want it doesn't matter what party I believe I'm in, I don't want a one-party country.
Well,
that's all I don't.
No one wants a one-party country. That's what they got in Russia.
Fascism.
That's what they got in communist China.
But see, he's following his dream.
Yeah.
And I don't knock anyone who's following their dream. If you want to be the governor, if you want to be the mayor, if you want to be city clerk, that's your dream. That's your profession. If you're good at it, I'm going to look at your resume, and if you're good and you believe in the same things that I believe in, I'm going to vote for you. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, I believe in voting for the man and or woman and not the party.
Well, I hope that Chief Craig, if he does run, one of the first things he does is denounce Trump and say that Trump is not the appropriate, he did not win that election. He was overwhelmingly defeated by Joe Biden, and if he does that, I won't vote for him because I'm going to vote for Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, you know, Democrat born, Democrat bred. When
Grand
I
Rapids.
die, I'll be Democrat dead. You've heard that, and that's not my poem, even though I'm a poet. You know, I should get in another poem too. Don't be a dummy who hesitated. Go and get yourself vaccinated.
Yes.
You know,
that's the truth.
Too many of us are hesitating to get vaccinated. We need immunity in our community. Okay, that's my poem.
Unity in
Now,
our community.
now you
for
know,
the
Dr.
day.
Telford, we got 5 minutes left, so
Okay.
perhaps we should give the majority of it to Mr. Richard before we
All right.
close out now.
Absolutely,
What do you think?
absolutely.
Any messages for us, things we don't know about or should think about in terms of the city clerk office?
Detroit, you need to vote wisely on whatever candidate for whatever office. For whatever office you support or whoever person, you need the best qualified candidate. Sometimes the best person doesn't always win, but your vote does count. You have a voice. If you don't vote, you really have nothing to talk about. We need people in Detroit that are Detroiters, for Detroit, love Detroit, and believe in Detroit. So we need that first.
I just found out that we got to wrap it up. We don't have 5 minutes.
Okay.
So do your.
Well, please remember to vote for Michael Stephen Richard for Detroit City Clerk.
Yes, and do the lead out with the music.
And you're listening to the John Telford Show on WJZZ with Dr. John Telford and co-host Dr. Sunanda Corrado on Thursdays from 10 to 11 in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It was the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said Dr. John Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Listen also to Dr. Telford on WCHB AM 1340 Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. Tune in again next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And thank you for listening.